Okay, Martin Waleij. I'm CEO of BrainCool, which is a medical device company founded 4 years ago here in Lund. We have two main business areas. One is the business of brain cooling, where we have two medical devices, the BrainCool system and another device called the Waleij system, which both targets brain hypothermia of stroke or cardiac arrest patients. We have a very interesting development in this, and one of the products actually has been awarded a late-breaking presentation at American Heart November 11. So today my focus will be on our second business unit, which is pain management, where we have interesting oncology applications. I will, however, present the Princess trial and the brain cooling at another biotech BioStock meeting in Stockholm late November. Like a few of the biotech companies, we're funded by a convertible setup with a company, Australian company called L1 Capital, of 100 million, where we currently have raised 25 million out of those. I could tell you a little bit about that as well, if there's an interest. The problem in brain cooling, however, cooling the brain helps relieve the lack of oxygen when you get a stroke or a cardiac arrest. Huge market potential. We have sales with both these products, and we really are into launch phase. The idea about those two products. Okay, I don't even have a cold. I can hold on. Does it work better? No. Kan hålla den kanske. Nu då? Yeah, slightly better. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit. The Waleij has been evaluated in a pre-hospital clinical trial on cardiac arrest, where you cool cardiac arrest patients after 50 minutes after onset. For up to 3 hours, where you change to our other product, BrainCool system, where you can cool patients up to 5 to 10 days. Very interesting area, but not for today. Our focus today is our second business unit, which is pain management. BrainCool is a quite small company. We're 15 employees, quite well funded. We're very good in medical device development. We brought from within 4 years 3 products to CE marking class 2B or 3. We have a track record of delivering pre-market approvals, delivering FDA approvals, and also approvals in Japan. So we, in our pain management area, target unmet medical needs where preferably competition should be pharmaceutical companies. And we identified 2 areas. We built a cooling unit, which has a CE certificate. It even has a CB certificate, so it should be easy to prove in the States and Japan later on. And that is now connected to actually 2 products. The first product to market is Coral system, which is an oral device that we developed with a professor in odontology at Sahlgrenska University. We got patent approval after 7 months. We got a fast track from the US FDA that no Swedish company has had before, an expedited access pathway. And this product is actually now finally going into a launch phase. We have a big clinical trial of 180 patients where we only have a couple of months left. And we have enormous interest in this and have already started taking orders, actually. The second project is a Cool Limb, where there's interesting data of cooling of hands and feet for prevention of neuropathy, where there is also pharmaceutical companies. There's one phase 3 project from Pled Pharma, who I think I skip this and try like this. Does it work? It works better for me. Which is also a perfect project for BrainCool. There's no projects on the market. There's pharma projects that's tried for 20 years, but there's still no project on the market. We target more patients than the pharmaceutical companies. We can bring products to market 5 to 10 years before without any side effects. So that is our overall strategy. First mover, every single use of our devices, we look into margins of at least 80-85%. then we could be 5-fold cheaper than pharmaceuticals who might have 10 years to market, if they even get there. Tolerable, convenient, and controlled. Oral mucositis then is a problem of getting severe problems, mouth sores in the mouth, 7 different areas in the mouth. No product on the market. There's been 5 pharmaceutical players in the US have a fast track who's in phase 2. Chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, which we take on with cooling of hand and feet. There's one Swedish project called Pled Pharma, who are currently in phase 3. We're working with quite many major key opinion leaders. Roger Henriksson has recently joined the board and is a scientific advisor for CPN. He's headed Karolinska, the cancer care in Stockholm, high positions in AstraZeneca. And we also are already working with top key opinion leaders, even in trials in Japan, and aim to start trials also with UCSF and Mayo Clinic in the US. So oral mucositis target 1.75 million patients a year, neuropathy 1.3 million patients a year. External marketing say that oral mucositis is a market of €1 billion, at least per year. And according to Pled Pharma, it's even more for chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. We haven't any on-market assessment there yet. The product Cool Prevent then should be one cooling unit that has 2 applications that target 2 different problems. Cooling of the mouth, prevention of oral mucositis, and cooling of hand and feet, prevention of chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. Even if we would price this modestly, we see very, very high margins and a 5-fold lower price than comparable potential drugs. The background then of oral mucositis is that we developed this device, started 3 years ago with a professor in odontology, who is an oral expert in the world, expert in oral medicine in the world. We also quite soon established a collaboration with a doctor in Uppsala Akademiska sjukhuset, who actually have done a research with follow-up cooling of these patients by chewing ice cube for more than 7-8 years. So we have long-term follow-up that we could show the FDA. We've done a clinical development plan, close collaboration with these 2 universities and Karolinska. So actually we've driven this project with the 2 50% employees and now are very, very close to the market. And we got money from Cancer Fund and Vinnova and all this stuff. So the project here's an example of the problem. You get really severe problems in the mouth. So you grade them from 1 to 4. If it's grade 4, you can't eat, you can't take the drug as prescribed, and there's enormous financial burden for these kind of patients. According to Medicare in the US, every oral mucositis patient costs the system, US healthcare system, $40,000 per patient. Our idea is then there is clinical evidence of chewing ice, but it's not used due to the risk of infection. It's only in countries with good water like Sweden, Canada, actually chewing of ice is even allowed. And here we show 2 photos of the cooling distribution with our device compared to just chewing ice. So by adapting a much better cooling distribution, you will get much better results in terms of prevention of the problems. The market of oral mucositis, as I said, 1.5 million patients a year, huge healthcare cost per patient, and a strong market. We very, very quickly got an expedited access pathway and a fast track for this device by the FDA. So basis for US approval is a big Swedish clinical trial that I can tell you a little bit about later, which is the basis also for the US approval. Competition in this market, there is no real drugs that solves the problem. It's mouth rinses and simple products that often is labeled as pharmaceutical. But there is no effective product on the market. And most of all, the pharmaceutical projects, they try to relieve the problem. By using cooling, you prevent this problem. You will not get this problem at all. There is one drug, Kepivance, that has been FDA cleared, but is not to be judged to be working. But that's an example. They charge $10,000 per patient for this drug. There's one company that recently, in oral mucositis, targeting only 500,000 patients, just signed a license deal of $150 million US. I think they could be 5-6 years from market if they ever get there. We expect to be approved on the US market already 2020. The product then, cooling unit connected to a mouthpiece that you have in the mouth during chemotherapy. That's very tolerable and be used in more than 100 patients right now. Clinical status is we have a multi-center trial of 100 patients. It is in interim analysis of 100 patients. We expanded this trial to Oslo University Hospital and expect to have closed this trial the first part of 2019. Study protocol approved by the FDA. Fast tracks is also basis for a future de novo 510K application. CoolIM, then the other application, is cooling of hand and feet. We will use the same model. The trick is to get as good cooling as possible to be very tight to the skin. There is a 40-patient trial of using ice cubes, cooling of hand and feet, that actually showed statistical significance, which has much, much more promising data than, for example, Pled Pharma. So we've been contacted by leading US clinicians saying, you know, oral mucositis, want to make a product for this, and this is exactly what we're doing. Here's an example again about cooling distribution with our device, which will soon have a international patent application November 2, so we can't really show in detail, but showing that our cooling distribution in the food, for example, is much, this is with a heat camera, it's much more efficient than just cooling, putting your hand or feet in an ice bucket. Number of patients I mentioned, all patients have to be cooled. So all the patients don't get oral mucositis. So if 50% get it, you have to cool 3 million patients, etc. Health economics, also chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, $20,000 per patient. Enormous win for the healthcare system if this works. The product then, we have 2 single-use devices connected to one cooling product. Route to market, BrainCool is a small company. We are building sales operations in the US for stroke, cardiac arrest. Most likely we will go for distribution deals here. We have already signed our first distribution deal in the Middle East and have very, very strong interest from Japan to, westwards. Summary, patent protection Coral. We got it in 7 months. We're already patent approved even in China. It looks good in Europe, and we wait for feedback for Japan and the States. We are good in medical device. Look out for the other medical device companies that don't have received CE marking. 2020, January 1, there will be new MDD system, and everybody has to start from zero. The companies that you don't trust in medical device that haven't succeeded getting CE marked the last 3 years, be aware, because all this company will start fresh January 1. BrainCool, obviously not one of them. So the trick here, the cooling unit is class 2B, but the consumables is class 1. So you can already count that we will have CE marking on cooling of hand and feet next year, and also US approval 2020. First mover, high healthcare cost at a very good track record so far. Competition, pharmaceutical companies, good and bad, obviously. Hard competition. On the other hand, these 2 problems are caused by other pharmaceutical companies. The drugs that will cure this problem will most likely have a will also have a side effect profile that these products don't have. This is actually the only thing I can tell, because my voice is gone now. So I'll stop.
Thank you, Martin. we can all see that you're having a hard time, so I won't keep you up here long and force you to speak more. Of all the things that you have achieved, then it was a year ago or something that you presented at a BioStock event there. What do you think? What do you consider your most important achievement so far?
I honestly think it's within the brain cooling area where we're starting up a US subsidiary. We have the guy that directs the sales operation in the US has built all the sales for Arctic Sun, $200 million US. We have their chief nurse, and we're about to really open up the US market with BrainCool system and hopefully RhinoChill as well, which has been challenging products to really get into work in stroke environment and cardiac arrest environment. It's been taking us longer time than expected, but now products are working well. We got sales of BrainCool system, and of course the RhinoChill has just been awarded 1 out of 3 for the big stage at American Heart November 11 to present the Princess trial. Huge interest, do or die situation, I guess.
Do or die situation.
I don't know the results.
We're crossing our fingers, of course. But you mentioned orders, actually selling. That's also quite an achievement. You recently sold, was it 5 units to the Middle East?
We actually have some repeat business with the BrainCool system. We got sales in Germany and Sweden, but the order in the Middle East is a little bit strange. It's for this oncology device.
Yeah.
So even though we haven't launched it, we already have orders, and we actually have we don't want to make a big launch before the trials are good, because of course the better results we have in the trials, the more we could argue to say, okay, we save the healthcare system $10,000 per patient. We still think there's a limitation for a medical device how much you can charge. But even if we go conservative, our margins would be top range in the medical device sector.
Yeah, and then speaking of comparing your medical device solution to the drugs that are being developed, like you said, well, there's a high risk in drug development in general. Obviously, there's great interest in the industry, lots of investor capital flowing into the oral mucositis area. Was it Galera Therapeutics who raised $150 million to go into phase 3? Yeah. But the challenge there, I mean, people actually like taking a pill or a drug as compared to the medtech or the device treatment, or?
I personally think, but this is a mission for me, that this will change.
Yeah.
And we see that with Roger Henriksson entering the board of directors and all of the biotechs in the oncology community, there's a clear trend that one should listen to the patients. And drugs causes often not good solutions and even more side effects. Here's a safe solution that probably have better results. I mean, I'm not humble, so I just say how it is. Pled Pharma has one scientific advisors they didn't want to name because he didn't want to stand behind them. That's Loprinzi. He's the guy reaching out to us saying, can't you do a device in this area? We think cooling could make this better than the drugs. But it's a harder sell. You don't have the same marketing and you don't have the same financial backing. But we can see from charities in the US even reaching out to say, can't we support you in the launch of this product in the US? They would never do that for a drug. But then you have the other aspect. Could we raise $150 million US? Yeah, if we could do that, we would probably not have L1 capital as a convertible fund set up. So.
I was going to ask you about that because obviously this kind of solution where new shares are being converted and it comes out in the market, it puts the pressure on the price, like Sten from Serena was talking about too. Okay. And if you could go back, would you still have chosen this solution?
Yes, I actually would, because in that point of time, the last year in BrainCool, it's been easier for the board, the employees, all the new people that we we hired in the US that comes from Medtronic, from Bard, say, okay, this is a stable company. We don't have to care about funding. So, but then, of course, I'm in it for the long run, so I don't see the share price month by month. But it could be a better way, in my opinion, instead of chasing money all the times. But of course, it depends on the deliverables you have. I think this model works when there's a reasonable high liquidity in the market. And if you look for L1 Capital, which is a big Australian fund, they have big deals with biotechs in France, in the US, Australia. But there they don't have to press release that they have to sell the shares, and they get the shares directly, etc. But you can see a situation now in Sweden, and I think probably this is tougher for the biotechs because you need sort of a news flow to keep the interest in the share. And in biotechs, it's often longer circles. Well, with the catch-22 that you need more money. But you can see right now, and I've been in the VC industry, that there's coming new players in the market. L1 Capital's European subsidiary has a European name. There's a company with almost exactly the same name that derives from another company that's been on the market that hardly can't make any deals. So it's tricky with these players. But our experience with L1 is good. For example, we're about to list a subsidiary called BrainCool, who's be on the stock in 2 weeks' time. And then we can agree that you can't sell shares right now because that will affect the divestment. And then say, well, okay, not a problem. Yeah. We do as I tell you. So I think it's good, and sometimes maybe it's not the only option. Yeah. I can't speak for the other companies because I don't follow.
No. That's a whole other discussion, actually. Thank you very much, Martin. You go home now and rest and be well.
Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.